My friends at Easy Cater are workplace catering pros, helping you find food for everything from daily employee meals to staff meetings and special events. Visit easycater.com/leaderassistant to find out more.
Hi, my name is Lauren Rauen. Most know me as Lo, and one of my favorite leadership quotes is, "Leadership is not a position or a title, it is action and example."
The Leader Assistant podcast exists to encourage and challenge assistants to become confident, game-changing leader assistants.
The Leader Assistant podcast is exclusively brought to you by Goody, which provides effortless gifting for all occasions. If you're tired of sending tacky, impersonal business gifts, then you should definitely check out Goody. My friends at Goody offer a collection of hundreds of curated brands like Levain Bakery, Therabody, Milk Bar, and Ember mugs. With Goody, if your recipient doesn't like your gift, they can swap it out for one they do like. You can find perfect gifts for any occasion, whether it's work anniversaries, birthdays, new hire onboarding, or company swag. It's free to start gifting, and you get a $20 credit when you sign up. Also, be sure to mention the Leader Assistant podcast when signing up, and Goody will add an extra $10 credit to your account. So go to leaderassistant.com/goody to disrupt the inefficiencies in your team's gifting strategy. Again, that's leaderassistant.com/goody. Hey friends, thanks for tuning in to the Leader Assistant podcast. It's your host, Jeremy Burrows, and you're listening to episode 162. You can check out the show notes at leaderassistant.com/162. leaderassistant.com/162. Today, I'm very excited. I'm speaking with Lauren Rauen, and she actually goes by Lo, so I'm going to call her Lo. Lo is the executive assistant to the co-founders and entire C-suite at SUPER73, which SUPER73 is an electric motorbike company. They've got a fun Instagram account I was scrolling through earlier. But Lo, how's it going?
Great. Thanks for having me, Jeremy. Happy to be here with you today.
Yeah. What part of the world are you in?
I am currently in Irvine, California, Orange County. I grew up just about an hour from here, and it is where SUPER73 is headquartered out of.
Awesome. And I have to ask, do you have an electric bike?
I do. So I have two roommates, and between the three of us, we have 3 bikes at the house. Awesome. 2 of them belong to me, and my roommate was so convinced he bought one for himself. So we all cruise around on them quite a bit.
Awesome. I've been doing research myself, trying to figure out if that's our next move to cruise around the neighborhood. So,
yeah, they're very popular down here, especially by the beach cities. And we've started to see these kind of gangs of young kids. Maybe gang isn't the right word, but, we call them our super squad riders. And I don't think you can drive around with school ending without seeing a bunch of kids cruising along the streets on them.
Nice. So awesome. Well, glad to have you on the show. Why don't you tell us a little bit about how you ended up becoming an executive assistant? Maybe a little bit of your background.
Yeah. So it wasn't really a role that I was actively seeking. I was kind of on a different career path. 2 years ago, I worked for a sports and hospitality lifestyle agency. And so I was kind of the middleman between large sponsors and sporting events. So Super Bowl, Masters, tennis, kind of you name it, anything sports related. And right when COVID hit, one of my biggest accounts, the Masters, was canceled in 2020. I was living on the East Coast and came home just to be with family, and kind of got that feeling that it was time for a change. Start looking for something new. And my dad gave me some really good advice. He said, if a company can hire during this type of a climate, just imagine what they'll do kind of when we're back to quote unquote norm. So I kept my eyes open. I wasn't quite ready to leave that position. within hospitality. I loved it. I loved my company, my clients, my coworkers. And as my dad mentioned, I just kept my eyes open and I fell across SUPER73, who had many job postings, which was unusual to see. A lot of brands were unfortunately laying off people, furloughing people. So to see so many open positions, I actually applied for 3 positions at SUPER73 before they hired me. The first was a brand specialist, and kind of, was speaking with someone in HR, but never really got an interview out of it. And the second position, I don't recall the exact title, but it was in marketing. And same thing, my contact on LinkedIn was saying, just keep applying. And I saw the position for executive assistant. And I think in my head, I personally at the time had a different idea of what that meant and what that role would entail. But something about this company was just I was really drawn to it. So I applied and ended up getting the interview, and within a week had an offer and was putting in my 2 weeks notice at my agency.
Wow.
So that's how I kind of landed the role.
Wow. So how did they take it, or how did you communicate with them? Because this was your first executive assistant role, correct?
Correct.
So how was that process? Like, were they like, well, we were kind of looking for someone with experience? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. It was a really great conversation. My second interview was with 2 of the co-founders, our CMO and our CEO. So, right off the bat, I was talking to them, the people I would be working with directly. And I think it was just good synergy. They had never had an executive assistant before. At the time, the company was 4 years old. So I think they were just realizing that they needed help. They needed assistance. They were in this phase of huge growth and huge demand. We're talking June and July of 2020 when everyone wanted a bike. So I was very straightforward with them. I was honest in that I had never had a position of executive assistant. I told them I applied to some of the other positions, which I thought more fit my background, having a master's in marketing, coming from a more traditional marketing agency where I was familiar with brands and brand development, which is why those 2 positions were appealing to me. But something just wasn't quite fitting. So I think that they liked that I was eager to be part of the company, wanted my foot in the door, and was kind of willing to do whatever it took to be part of the team. And I think at the end of the day, they were looking for someone who was organized, could help organize their lives, and just be excited about the brand, the lifestyle that they were creating, and where the company was headed. And I think despite not having traditional executive assistant experience, that is what they were most excited about.
Yeah, that makes sense. So as you got into it and got started, was there any moments where you're like, oh man, I really don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what this role is going to take.
Yeah, almost every day until today, there's those moments where I don't know and I'll have to ask the questions. Right when I was hired on, they were just kicking off or in the middle of a Series B fundraise, which was something that was still a bit foreign to me, and fundraising and startup life and what that entailed. So I had to really jump in and learn a lot about that, because I was kind of at the forefront of talking to potential investors, having meetings, doing, all the research I could. So they were prepped for the calls. And I got to learn a lot about, startups and how you need to operate and what you need to look for in a strategic partner, or if you're just looking for strictly cash. So right off the bat, the first 6 months, I would say, was dedicated very heavily on our Series B fundraise. And every day I was trying to learn more, educate myself on how I could better assist them. And it was a learning experience for all of us. Like I said, they had never had, a me in their lives. So I think we kind of took it day by day, but every day there's something new that I'll learn at this company, and I wouldn't change that. I love that.
Nice. So you shifted from a different industry and position into the EA role. You talked about how you jumped in and just learned a lot. What are some pros and cons for those, even assistants that are considering switching to a different industry?
Yeah, I think at the time when I was looking for jobs while I was still with the agency, I was looking for similar positions that I wanted to still work in sports and I wanted to still work in hospitality. And I think having a very narrow mind was limiting me to opportunities and job postings and companies that are out there. So shifting into an executive assistant role, at the time I was like, I hate to say this, but I felt overqualified. Like, am I just going to be managing calendars and doing busy work? And I was very upfront in my interview and I said, I applied for these other two. I have a lot of experience in marketing. And I'd love to incorporate that in my day-to-day and not only support our CEO, but support our CMO and our entire marketing department. So I think what I kind of saw in that year is, unfortunately, a lot of people were laid off, especially in the hospitality and sports industries, but they were looking for jobs in those same industries and the demand just wasn't there. So shifting to a sector such as electric mobility, sustainability, it's only getting bigger. So although the title seemed very drastic to me, my day-to-day hasn't seemed to change much. I'm much like a project manager as I was with the agency, I deal with multiple different people on a day-to-day. So our CEO, our CMO, our chief brand officer, those are the three co-founders that I supported right at the beginning. Within my first year, we hired on our COO, our CFO, and then also support our CTO, along with, we just hired general counsel and our VP of sales. So we all got to grow together, but like I said, I don't much of a difference. I may not be working with a specific sports team or working with a specific brand, but I do have to juggle, wear a lot of hats, multitask, be able to shift from a conversation about batteries and dangerous goods and how are we solving a solution here, and then talking about company culture internally with our marketing department and how can we be doing better. But those conversations, while the topic may be different, I think what's going into it, the effort, the organization, the creativity, the need to be on top of everything in so many different ways is very similar. So what I'm trying to say is encouraging, if you are looking for a new position that maybe you think an executive assistant isn't the right position for me, there's a lot that transfers over from really any position that you held before.
Yeah. Well, I love what you said about there wasn't the demand in the industry you were in. And so you kind of broadened your horizons and thought outside of the box and looked for industries that were hiring a bunch and that were growing in spite of the craziness in the world. So yeah, for those assistants listening, and I've been a big proponent in our leader assistant community, encouraging assistants to check out, software, innovative companies, tech companies, these companies that have high margins or that are growing in a space that is not going to slow down anytime soon.
Yeah, 100%.
So yeah,
I would, to just piggyback up off of that, I think it could be daunting applying for a position or with a company that you may not be familiar with. I mean, I didn't know anything about electric mobility, e-bikes. I knew they looked cool. I had seen them before, but just do a little bit of research on more of the brand, company culture, things like that. They're not going to expect you to know every piece of the bike. I just the other day learned out what a sprocket was, and it took me a year and a half to learn that. But yeah, I think it can be a bit scary trying to move sectors, but ultimately I think it was the best decision for me and I'm really happy I did it.
Yeah, I think our skills are more transferable than we like to think they are. And so, yeah, well said. So what's your favorite part now about being an executive assistant?
I think my favorite part is there is never a dull moment. And since I was a kid, juggled many things, school, dance, family, friends, and I am still juggling today. The three co-founders are amazing. I get along with them so well, but they couldn't be more different individuals. I sat in the office with our CEO for a full year before we moved headquarters. I got to support marketing a lot of their campaigns and their shoots. So I still get to, have that marketing integrated into my day to day. And I wrapped up an amazing project with our chief brand officer. Actually, funny enough, kind of filling the shoes of that brand position that I wasn't hired for. That employee left. So I kind of took over a project and managed our YSL SUPER73 collaboration, which was one of our most incredible collaborations to date. So I did get to manage that project. So I got a little taste of the brand, but I love that I kind of get to be involved in every aspect of the business, from finance to operations to HR to company culture. I feel I have a pulse on everything that's going on. And while we grow, I get to kind of be the voice to our founders, to the C-suite on, what I might be hearing, what I might be feeling with some of our junior employees, people that are just coming on. And while it might not seem like a huge responsibility, it's so important to our co-founders that we maintain our true integrity. And I feel this position allows me to kind of bridge the gap.
Yeah. So on the other side, what's your least favorite part about the role?
I think the answer could kind of be the same. Every day is so different. I'm a very scheduled person. Obviously, I was hired to manage many schedules. And, I'm looking at my computer right now and I'm looking at the same time at 8 different calendars, as well as my own, and seeing what everybody's doing. So I have that organizational mind where everything is kind of very clear cut to me. So sometimes that can be great, but it can be very chaotic. I think it can be a blessing and a curse because a lot of people lean on me, and I take that they, they trust me. They know I can handle something, but it can become overwhelming when you have 8 people coming to you, asking for things, asking you to get something done, but also at the same time wanting to work on projects that fulfill me, because I want to make sure that I am enjoying my day to day while I'm supporting the rest of the organization. So it's a tough position to be in. You are in a bit of an island as an executive assistant, at least in our company, it's just me. I know other companies, each executive might have their own assistant, but right now, I am all they've got, and I love that. It just can be overwhelming, and at times you're stuck doing kind of the grunt work, and that's just part of the role. But there are so many more fulfilling things that outweigh the negatives.
How many employees do you all have right now?
We are about just over 100 in the States. And then we do have a headquarters in Amsterdam that's growing rapidly. And I would say we're about 60 employees over there.
Nice. Yeah, I feel you on the being the only assistant. I was hired number 1 at my company capacity, and I've been supporting the founder, CEO ever since. And we're at 95 people or so right now. And so it's definitely can be like working on an island. Thankfully, I'm an introvert and I like working from home and I like being on an island. But that's part of why I reach out to so many assistants all over, is because I do need to connect with people that understand my role.
Yeah, it's a very unique position to be in that unless you're in it, I don't think you fully understand kind of what it is that we do, what would slip through the cracks if we weren't there.
Yeah. So you reached out to me on LinkedIn and just basically asked if I had recommendations for you / assistants who would want to put themselves out there to help shift the stigma of what an EA truly is. So tell me a little bit more about why you reached out and what you're passionate about in regards to the EA role.
Yeah, so I had reached out because I'm coming to a point. It'll be 2 years with the company in July where I kind of want to see myself grow, and I want to, succession plan or things like that, and what the different routes are for an EA, because I think that is very blurry as well. Some people, this is what they want to do for their lifetime or for their entire career. There may be others who want to shift. I've done some research to a chief of staff role, or others where you said might want a vertical transition. So into a specific department, if I wanted to really focus on sales because I enjoy working under sales or under marketing or brand or whatever, operations. I think as an EA, we have so much visibility on so many departments that sometimes one department can be very enticing and, oh, I really want to do that, or I really want to do this, or, do I love this, where I get a little slice of each department and continue to grow in this position. So just in the past couple months, for my own sake, I've been doing a lot of research, a lot of thinking, reflection on where do I see myself this year, in 2 years? Where do I see the company growing? How can I benefit my co-founders, our C-suite? As our headcount just continues to grow, how can I continue to put an impact? And I think now, almost 2 years in, I reflect back to when I first applied to this position thinking, well, I personally don't want to be an executive assistant. It seems, that's not the title that I'm aspiring to have. And I regret that was my mindset. And I don't want that to be the same mindset for people that see open positions, because having this position, there are so many opportunities, so many doors. There's so much growth potential. And I think it's important that a lot of people are aware of that. I can't tell you how many times people kind of assume that I just get coffee or lunches. And that may be the role for some executive assistants, some personal assistants, but at least for myself, it is so much more than that. The responsibility, the day-to-day things. So I just felt, I think there is a bit of a stigma that sometimes an executive assistant is a personal assistant or a secretary or a receptionist. And while we are those things, we're so much more. And so I just wanted to get a conversation started on where do others go when they feel like they're ready to propel their career, or how do you transition, or how do you become even better in your current role?
Yeah, I love it. So that brings me to our last question, ties in perfectly. So what is it that makes an assistant stand out from the crowd? What makes an assistant a leader?
I think they're kind of like behind the scenes leaders. We're the unsung heroes, maybe. The CEO mind readers, you might say. A lot of times, those who I support say, "Lo, we wish we could clone you." We have our European headquarters, and so many times they said, "Can we get a Lo shipped over here?" And it's a funny compliment, but I think, everything goes smoothly, and we don't need to be praised because everything goes smoothly, but, we're leading our leadership team to be even better. So that's what, I love about this position is we have such an incredible leadership, executive, C-suite team, and having someone that can allow them to, be their best is, why we're leaders. We're leaders among those who are new to the company. We're leaders, to our entire C-suite. They lean on me as much as I lean on them. And, at the end of the day, we're their right-hand man. And I think sky's the limit, and it's the golden age of executive assistants.
Well put. I actually did have one more question. I totally forgot I was going to ask you. So I was, stalking your LinkedIn, and I noticed that you were a dance team head coach at the University of Oregon. So that's pretty impressive. That's awesome. So have you applied any skills from that time in your EA role?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it seems like a lifetime ago that I was doing that while I was getting my master's at the University of Oregon. I was able to coach their dance team. And it's funny because I was rather young holding that position. And just a year before, I was a member of a college dance team. So it was a very quick transition from being on a collegiate competitive team to then coaching a collegiate competitive team. So I had this very unique dynamic with the students that I was only a year or two older than them, but was still leading them. And I loved it. I took them to the collegiate national championships for the first time. The team hadn't been in about 10 years. So once I kind of took them under my wing, I used the experience that I just had from the 3 years prior while I was competing and translated that into coaching. But I had been teaching for quite some time during my undergrad. So teaching is one of those things in coaching that I absolutely love. But yeah, I think there are many things that transfer over. I had to manage the captains of the team, just like I'm managing the co-founders of the team. So I think it's a little bit different. They were younger. I had to manage grades, make sure they were staying out of trouble, things like that. But it's really not much different when you're talking about a company. We're young, we have fun.
Awesome.
Yeah. So all about just, managing and making sure we get the job done and still have fun while doing it.
Love it. Well, Lo, thank you so much for sharing a little bit of your story and insight. I'm excited to keep in touch and follow you as your career progresses. How can people reach out and say hi if they want to connect with you?
Yeah, they're more than welcome to say hi on LinkedIn, which is, I know how we first connected. So I believe my LinkedIn is Lauren Rauen. If they want to follow me there, shoot me a message. I have a weekly reminder to check all my messages because I get a lot on behalf of the company. And they can also check out SUPER73, follow us on socials there, give us some love, and hopefully some listeners will get a bike and get out there riding and join the Super Squad.
Awesome. Well, I'll put your LinkedIn link in the show notes, leaderassistant.com/162. And I am definitely still waiting on my SUPER73 discount code so I can get me a bike now. Yeah. Thanks again, Lo. Have a great one, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you.
Please review on Apple Podcasts. GoBulls.com